Welcome to Northbound, Alaska, the Trucking Files, a podcast where we talk to haul road drivers, both past and present, to carry on the knowledge and experience of one of the toughest roads on Earth. In this episode, we sit down with Lonny Lofts, a driver with 33 years of experience on the haul road and close to 4 million miles. I've known Lonny for a long time. Probably since the mid-90s. We all went to the same church years ago.
90, 91, 92, somewhere there.
So I guess my questions, well, we got a lot of questions for you. But how did you get started in this trucking world?
My dad. I was driving his log truck. Well, back then you could do that, but I got my driver's license at 16, and they had a deal there. I mean, you could actually, as long as you were training. So, yep, got thrown in that International 4300, which they take the hood off a landing carrier, aircraft carrier, and they stick it on a truck. So when you're 16 years old, it looks like you've got a car out ahead of you there. But
so did you have the horsepower of an aircraft carrier?
oh, it was my dad, yeah. Only big Cam 2 400 had outrun a K600, so I mean, that was great.
And it is.
Yeah. I mean, no, and then I got working with him, and I graduated from high school and bought my first truck when I was 18, which was, I look at these first trucks these guys buy now, my first truck cost me $5,000. It's a little short logger gas truck with 5 and a 4, you know, and, but anyway, no, I worked with my dad and my uncle a lot, and that we did that for, well, I'd work with in the woods when I was summer, you know, high schools and stuff. And then, no, I just, they got me into it, kind of got in my blood.
What was your first memory of being in a truck or riding in a truck or
being terrified?
When you were really young?
Well, no, I mean, he just, here, drive. And
yeah.
I mean, I didn't even know what double clutch meant. I mean, I just had that car. I mean, you dump the clutch, burn the tires, and away you go. And there's a lot of cussing that went on, you know.
From you or your dad?
Oh, no. I was sitting over there. I was too scared to say a word, you know. I mean, that hood was monstrous. I thought it was killing everybody, let alone trying to figure out, you know. I guess we had 13 speeds then, which were a little different than the 18s now. But no, it was interesting. It was like... But no, we just did that for about 12 years.
So that was just something that was familiar to you. It's like, this is something I'm going to do. I'm just going to, my dad did it. My uncle did it or whatever. And
yeah, I mean, we logged. I mean, it was a blast. Hauling logs, logging was okay, but hauling logs was a blast because, okay, honestly, you're racing all day long. I mean, you'd pull out and you'd start looking for another logging truck to race. I mean, that was just the highlight of your day, right? I can remember, I mean, you could get behind the guy, you could count the growth rates in the log trying to push him up the hill. You were so close behind him and hoping to pray he didn't miss a gear. But it's slow speed racing, right? You're not breaking the speed limit, so the cops can't say nothing. But I had some old junker trucks that I spent all the money under the hood. They looked like garbage, but they'd go like, you know, crazy there. But
so was this in Washington?
Yeah.
What part of Washington were you guys logging?
Northeast corner there.
Okay.
But
so you had some steep hills.
Oh yeah. They'd yard us up in the woods with a skidder and a dozer. We'd put chains on the truck and the trailer on that one job and turn you loose. And I know a grown man isn't supposed to scream, but sometimes it was, you'd come shooting down out of there, and that one, they'd pull us up there, and they'd kind of hold us while we were loading the logs with self-loaders, and you'd take off down out of there, and you were out of control, just like a slot car. You shoot out there, and was that one place that had guys raising beefalo back then. That was kind of a thing, you know, and you just hope they weren't in the way because you'd shoot out in that pasture where they were at until you got everything under control, you know. But it was fun. It was a lot of work, but then the whole environmental thing got going, the spotted owl thing, and things got crazy, and the state of Washington got insane. They were going to tax us for the rainwater running off our trucks. And I remember Jack Allen. He had that warehouse down there. They were going to charge him like $6,000 a year for it raining on the trucks and the roof of that stuff.
Wow.
We left. It got crazy. I mean, you couldn't you could make a lot of money, you just couldn't keep it, just all the taxes and stuff.
So is that when you come to Alaska then?
Yeah.
What brought that on? How did you want to head that
Well,
way?
it was, I knew a guy's brother-in-law that had a trucking company up here. I'm doing this right. Anyway, so he talked us into coming up, and we come up the first year just to kind of see what was going on, and goofed around for a little while, and then we put everything for sale and had a couple trucks down there and just other stuff, and then we just moved up, sold our house, home, everything, moved 4 kids and a Rottweiler, and my wife, we're still married. I mean, had a little international truck with a 692 in it, with a 45-foot van with everything we owned in it, and headed up. And I'm telling you, there are some really steep mountains in Canada back there at that time with no Jacob.
Oh, man.
It was a long trip, buddy. It was like, we didn't even make it. So one time we stopped alongside the road and took a shower in one of the runoff deals because we were so dirty. It took forever to get here. A creek coming off the mountain, and kids were squalling, the dog was squalling, but then we were clean afterwards. But yeah.
What year? That's probably the early 90s, huh? When was that?
90. We moved up 92 then, for good then. But it was, had a real nice custom van. First day at the new job, Pam goes screaming backwards out of the yard, plunged right into the gate post.
Oh, man.
We're still married.
She was a tough lady.
She's a tough lady. She never wrecked in Washington. Then she first got up here, and that throttle stuck on that. She bashed the back end, and then the throttle stuck. She plowed some poor woman right out into the intersection at a stoplight. We got rid of it. But yeah.
So how was it like when you first started driving up north? I mean, it had to remind you of your logging and all that, but I mean, trying to learn a new road.
Way different than logging. I mean, logging, it's hard and it's challenging and, whatever. But I think the hard part of logging is normally at a slow speed, unless you're coming down out of a mountain. But, the roads are crooked and narrow and all that. And, but up here, the road isn't that good, but it's at a higher rate of speed that it's not good. And things change. Not so much in the summertime, but in the winter, things change so fast up here. That took a lot of getting used to, because, you both have seen it. It can be fine, and 10 minutes later, it's not good. And I think that was the biggest thing I seen coming up here. And the road used to be a lot narrower than what it is now, and it used to be a lot rougher. And we used to change a lot more flat tires. And I remember with Dave Ensley with that super truck last West had, we changed 3 flats from Happy Valley to 62 Mile.
Yep.
And I'm serious. There was times when I was pulling lowboy, I got so beat up that you just stop, get out of the truck, and you wanted to take a hammer and just start pounding on rocks, get your frustration out, especially on the sag flats.
Wow.
It was just 12-inch minus is all it was. There was no fines in there. And had some interesting times. I got pictures somewhere when that flooded. People cannot believe that whole valley was just underwater across the sag flats to that bridge at the north end of it there. It's completely underwater. We'd pull a big module through there. I don't know, it's 100 and some feet long, 17 foot wide, and there's a little string of gravel. That's where the edge of the road was. That's all you could see for miles, And I told them I wasn't going, and they got on the phone there, and Arco said, yeah, that's when Arco was up there. We got to have that, so you go. It's like.
Was that when they had that berm out there along the side of the road?
Yep.
I remember being up there as a teenager with Dad. It's like the water was like, even with your window out there, it's like, man, I hope it don't come over this berm.
Well, I mean, had legs on that module. They had them feet sticking down off that module. And, I was over there. And the legs on that module were ripping that berm down. The water was coming in behind us there. Everybody was happy. Not me. I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy at all. But no, it's a lot easier now. But now we go faster. So again, you're back to everything bad that happens a lot quicker, And that's, like I say, that was the biggest thing I seen. I mean, both of them have their challenges. Which one's the hardest one? I don't know. The weather's can be a lot more difficult here than logging because, well, it hasn't been that way for a long time, but I remember weeks and weeks and weeks on a time at 50 below out across the sag flats and stuff. And I broke down in that, and I'm here to tell you, you want to have your gear with you because it was hours before somebody come and got me. And the radiator shelled out. It dumped all my water instantly. Man. And a good buddy, Terry Dunn, dropped his trailer in Prudhoe, and I'm sure he wasn't doing 48 mile an hour because he got back there pretty quick. But, it was so cold that I actually got out of the truck and started moving to warm up. And, I had all the gear with me, and, I don't know if people realize how intense that can get. And I haven't seen that weather here in the last few years. We get it for a week or two at a time, and there's enough more traffic there now that it's not as bad. But even, you got something that kind of people should kind of think about too, is if you do go off or you got to crawl, you wreck the truck or whatever. The one instance I remember is when I was working for that first company. It was before they rebuilt the road, but they're 28 mile on the taps. Push truck went down over the bank and rolled. It was an older Kenworth, and it filled that cab full of snow, and the guy was pinned in there. Well, T-shirt, tennis shoes, and jeans. It was 30 below, and he was packed in snow, and I was down there with chains and a hacksaw, cutting him. The clutch pedal had bent over and had his foot trapped in there. The steering wheel had smashed down, and it actually broke the tendons in his leg. We couldn't move. So we crawled in there, of course, panic, jump out, no coat on, nothing, and had to get him out of there before it froze to death. And the guy, my friend that was with me, he's push trucking. We had 2 modules on, but he's down there helping. And we were wrapping chains around all them little trees out there, trying to wrap them around 15, 20 trees to get binders enough to pull the clutch pedal over. I was hacksawing on the steering wheel like crazy, trying to get that piece cut out of there so we could get him out of there, When we got done, my pants were froze so hard that, I couldn't really sit down to get them off. They were just, it wasn't smart, but we was just an emergency situation. But I know a guy drives, a lot of people drive. I don't drive all bundled up, but you need to have your stuff handy because nobody knows when that's going to happen. Yeah. You look at Bill Manning blazing down over the pass there. I can't believe the guy's alive. I've never seen a truck hanging over that cliff, but all that was left hanging up on top by where you could see when you went by is above the guardrail, the pipe crossing there. The whole load was down over the bank. I don't even think he had his shoes on or something. He come up out of there with this. You just can't. You gotta be ready for the worst, even if it never happens.
I always wear long sleeves. I remember as a kid, probably about the same time frame, when that guy went off there at 26 mile and got partially ejected out there. But he was in his T-shirt, and he ended up, the military come and got him, flew him back to the hospital. But he died in there just from the exposure. But it's like, man, ever since then, I always wear long sleeves in the truck. Just
have your coat where you can grab it, even if you're upside down. And it never happens until it does. I don't know how many sleeping bags I went through laying over people trying to keep them warm out there, wrapping them around there. People, that guy that rolled over at the bottom of 5 mile, you grab your sleeping bag, jam it in around, try to keep him going into shock. Or motorcycle guys that totaled out on top of the slide, wrapped him up, tried to keep him, But it isn't. I think guys lose. I shouldn't say respect. They lose their respect because on good days, the road's a blast. Even in the middle of winter, it is. It's just not that big a deal if you're paying attention. And I know I'm getting older, but people say, "Do you see that out there?" Yeah, I just know. All I'm focused on is what I'm gonna. If something's close enough to the road that I can hit it, that's all. The further I look, I'm watching.
It only takes a second to get distracted.
Man, I tell you what, come around the corner, there's a moose laying in the road in the dark, because when them banks get big, you've seen them sleeping out there. It's north of Coldfoot. They'll just go out there and lay down the road. And you're looking past them, and all of a sudden they get up. It's like, oh, no. It's like, it's going to be a bad day.
Yeah, the distracted driving is not good on that road.
No. But
so you've been up there 33 years. How many miles do you think you got up there?
About 4 million, yeah.
On one road?
Yeah, it's...
I do have one question. How many miles do you have backing up on that road?
I don't know how to back up. I didn't pass that on my CDL. If that truck's going backwards, I'm just going to step out and watch it because that's how I was taught.
Good answer.
Yeah, I don't know. I backed off the Beaver Slide once because we just simply couldn't get up through there. I had 2 sets on, and it just wasn't happening. The guys were stuck coming down the hill and couldn't get down through there. And I was trying to get up through there to try to help break a hole, and we couldn't. And that was a long night. That takes a while when you can't see back there. It takes a long time. But Rob Chambers was sitting down there and put all his lights on, and that's what I aim for.
I've seen you back up the pass before. We didn't want to sleep on the hill with that avalanche down there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I backed
it sucks
up.
Sleeping in the truck there with it not level.
I don't want a part of that because every time it moves, you think it's sliding down the hill, but that's pretty cool. We just stopped, backed up, never chained up or nothing. I don't know how we did that. It's crazy, but anyway.
Good traction that night.
Yeah, it was. That usually doesn't happen, but no, I don't know. It's just a lot of common sense. I mean, we've all talked about it. It seems like that's gone a lot these days. I mean, I know they got rules of the road, courtesy and stuff, but a lot of times if you just sit back and look, it makes more common sense for you to do one thing and let the other guy do something than it is for you to just, this is the way it is, Well,
it's tough for me. I know when I started driving, it's like you had your mentors that you looked up to, but you knew who those mentors were. And it's like, you're here because you're one of my mentors when I started driving.
You poor guy.
Along with... And there's a lot of mentors out there that are mentoring people that they don't know. But it's what I've noticed is there's a lot of these new guys. They're out there. They either know it all or they don't know who they need to look up to. There's so many new people up there now. They just listen to the loudest person out there, whether they know something or not.
Well, it's not that. It's not a pride thing. Their pride has no room up there. And if somebody is trying to help you, don't get offended. Don't take it personal. Don't let your pride get in the way of good advice. I mean, I've tried to talk to a few guys and they just get mad or whatever, and it's like, all right, and it's that was what I noticed back when I first started. I mean, it was pretty tight-knit group. And if you were a new guy, nobody even really talked to you. But that being said, you still got treated with a level of respect. If you showed respect, you got treated with respect, even if they didn't know you, even if they didn't like you. They could hate your guts. But if you showed respect, you got respect back. I don't see that so much now.
Yeah, not much respect.
And it's... it was different. There was things settled maybe outside the truck. I mean, you kind of remember some guys chasing each other around Coldfoot and oiling on each other, jump the truck, go down the road, jump out and beat on each other again. I mean, a guy got knocked clean out there at the bottom of Madigan Pass because he did something wrong to a guy. And of course, that doesn't happen anymore. I kind of miss it. But anyway. But at that time, buddy, if you didn't treat people with respect, there was consequences, and but
and it was respect no matter where you worked. It's like you were all, once you left town, you're all in it together to survive.
But everybody went up there prepared. You didn't see people up there. I've seen people that left town that had no business leaving town, and they knew they didn't have the equipment that they needed to complete the trip. And I think that's another thing that's a little different about up here than down the States. You need to have some mechanical ability. You need to have the bare knowledge of your air system and how it works. You need to have a knowledge of your electrical. Now these new trucks are a little different, but just some common electrical ability and fittings and stuff for airlines. I feel every truck should have spare belts. I feel like everybody should carry an alternator, but that's just me. Jacks, tire tools, tire plugs, air hoses.
And you're checking that. You're doing a pre-trip every time you stop. Every couple hours, you're walking around looking at things. You're checking your tires.
I'm old. My bladder tells me to stop every 2 hours, so I just look then, But no, it's and you guys might think this is crazy, but it's a whole lot healthier for you to get out and get your circulation going every 2-3 hours. By law, if you don't have a hazmat load, you are supposed to do it every 3 hours anyway. But that aside, how many people that's suffered with blood clots in their legs up there?
Yep.
More than a few. And when you sit in one position for hours and hours and hours, it's just not good on you there.
Yeah, you don't have to walk around very much just to get the blood flowing.
Just get the blood flowing a little bit,
But it's so nice on that road. I mean, you're making sure you're not dragging stuff, or making sure your load's you're not losing your load and
stuff falling off.
You got a flat tire. It's like if you can save one tire, you can save the one next to it. But you drive too long, and then you got a double barrel. And
well, these strap loads. I mean, I've seen so many people hurt with loads of pipe that I'm a little bit gun shy when I see. If you see wooden blocks flying off, the chocks flying off your load, you got loose straps. Your load's moving. There's no other reason that they'll fall off other than the pipe moving. And that pipe will wreck you, and it will kill you. I mean, we've had people, and I mean, that stuff, we both have a friend that lost a load going out to Caperic on a 35, 40 mile an hour road, that there was joints of pipe that were 3 lengths ahead of the truck when he stopped. It just barely missed the cab. Barely missed the cab. If that had went through, it'd have took his head off. But, you see these guys going up down the road 1,000,000 miles an hour with that stuff like it's just no big deal, and it's not till it is. But I think Bobby Bird was the one that got killed there at Adigan 1. But load pipe. But no, I mean, there's just check your loads, keep your strap tight, stuff like that is not only. And one of the things that I learned too, kind of the hard way, never thought it'd happen. I had a crossbar come out of a set of chains at 35 miles an hour. It went clear through the back of my sleeper. So what would that done if that went through somebody's windshield? What would it do to somebody at 50 miles an hour when you go by somebody at 50 miles an hour with a set of chains on and had a hook or a crossbar come out and go through their windshield? They're not designed for that speed. I mean, people get away with it, but they're not designed for that speed. And, buddy, I tell you what, that punched a hole through that sleeper like a bullet.
Wow.
And like I was doing 35 miles an hour coming across from Goldstream to Fox there, and had an oversize on, And it's like, okay, lesson learned there. But
you just really have to watch everything.
Yeah.
You're looking at everything when you're getting out, looking at your truck.
Yeah. Well, like I say, even the whole chain thing is kind of, that's a respecting who you're meeting to slow down, especially if you got a set. If you want to drive that fast, nobody's around, that's on you. But when you're meeting somebody with that set on at that speed, then you're risking them too, But
there has to be that respect when you're meeting people, and it's, watching your mirrors and making sure, seeing which way the wind's blowing and rocks are flying or snow dust, or just, you have to take care of the other people. Think about other people, not yourself.
Well, you know what it gets like when it warms up a little bit up there on them rocks. They start sticking to the tires, and sometimes 35 is too fast. Roll your window down a little bit. If it's banging off of your truck, it's going to definitely be banging off of theirs,
Yeah.
Well, I met a guy recently. We were probably both doing 20.
Yeah.
Hey, little pebble hits the window. It's like, I don't think it matters how slow you're going. You're still going to get a little bit.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, I met a guy there, and he was doing about 15, and the rock, we both seen it. It just squirted out from under a steer tire. He hit side the truck like a baseball, put a big dent in it. He's apologized. I said, dude, it's the haul road. You did everything right. I did everything right. Sometimes this just happens.
When you're on a gravel road, things are going to happen.
Now, if he'd
like
have been
that.
doing 50, we'd have had some words. But he was doing what he needed to do. You know, and so, I mean, it happens, you know. But
Do you have any rules of the road that you follow or different? You know, I think about what Dad taught me. One of the things I always think about is always being prepared to meet somebody.
Yeah.
And if you're mentally prepared doing that kind of thing, you'll never be surprised.
I don't depend on that radio for nothing. In the dark, you can, if I got big lights, I dim my lights coming in the corner so I can see if somebody's coming, because you don't know if it's a carload of kids, a truck, a bus, you don't know. So you drive the speed that you can get it on your side. If you're out in the center a little bit, whatever, be prepared to meet anybody, anywhere, irregardless. I was telling one guy here a while back, I said, if you want to get really good drivers in your fleet, take the CBs out of their truck for 1 month and make them learn to drive that road with their eyes and their brains for 1 month. And then you can put the radios. The radio is there to help, not guide you. It's just there to help. That's it. And look, I mean, how many people, when you come across south from the top of the ice cut, you cross that pipe crossing, you can look down there and see if somebody's coming. I've had people blaze off there when you can see them for 10, 15, 20 seconds. Well, you didn't call it out. Well, you don't have eyes. It's just courtesy.
Yeah.
I've stopped. There's places that technically, according to the rules of the road, that I had the right-of-way loaded northbound, but I've stopped because it was easier, even at 115,000 pounds, it was easier to stop at that particular place to be courteous than it was for the other guy. That's common sense, you know. And I've seen guys go blazing down through there because, well, I'm northbound running for this hill. Well, okay. It wasn't necessary. You know, I mean, it's what I told that one guy. I said, I got 115,000 pounds on here. I'm still going to high side that hill. What's the problem? You know?
Really, this technology with the horsepower and the jakes and the tire technology, it's making people kind of...
Well, you remember when they had 400s and 4 1/4s, and Jimmy Conn told me about 350s, 350 horse. And I'm telling you what, maybe everybody needs to take them up there with 100,000 pounds, take one trip in that.
Well, that's what Dad was telling me. I started with 400 horse, and he told me I had way too much power to start on that road.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I never thought that. But
Well, I pulled with that 400 CAD after NC turned it back, them dirty dogs, but I was pulling the shelf at 8 miles an hour, 8 to 10 miles an hour with 100,000 on. You know, and you get to the top of the pass, and then you realize that, hey, this is just an old cat, and I'm going off the other side at 8 miles an hour to keep them burning the brakes off. You know, it's like, I mean.
But it's driving like that, it makes you think. You get aggressive at the bottom, and then you just you ease off the other side, or even if somebody's catching you on top of the hill, you get to the top, you're both going slow, just let somebody around quick.
Yeah, let them around. If somebody catches you, let them around. They're averaging more than you are. Maybe not for the next 2 or 3 miles, but their overall average, they're traveling faster. And one thing, I mean, and this is just another common sense thing, but every truck is different. Every truck, you cannot get 2 trucks identical. It never happens. They could be spec'd out, one will ride good, one won't, one pulls better, one doesn't. Every truck has different traction, depending on the suspension, the tires, the loads. And you have to know your equipment and drive what you're driving, because, you know, you may make it up the hill and I may not. Just the difference in the truck. So just because you spun out doesn't mean that I'm going to, or the other way around.
Yeah, I was thinking that the other day because who did I meet? I think it was Bart was coming off, and he's got a tanker, and he was telling another tanker guy, yeah, I think the hill is good. Well, I think he was saying that based on what he was pulling. Yeah. So it's like you said, it's like, what's your equipment? How are your shocks? How are your tires?
If you have the ability, check, like with us, we know what we got when we leave town. We know what we got on our drivers. But I know there's a lot of companies, they take the time to see what your split is, your driver trailer split is, and know. So I can pull a lot more up there with 45 to 50,000 on the drivers. I can, at 50,000, I can be a little bit tail heavy, but I don't want to go up there at 34,000 on the drivers and 36,000 on the trailer. You will have trouble every time. So, that's the common sense thing,
When you got driver weight, you can do anything.
Well, you feel like you can until it doesn't, but yeah,
Makes it a lot easier.
It does. And a lot of times if you do have problems, you can hold it because you have more sitting on the ground there, than trying to drag you off the hill. I know a lot of guys will disagree with me, but when you spin out and that truck stops, the first thing you should do is pop your park brakes. Because the park brakes are spring brakes. Now, a lot of guys, they say, well, what if it won't air up, whatever. I don't care what happens after I'm chained up. I don't want it going backwards while I'm chaining up. If you pull your squaw handle down on your trailer, you put more pressure on your brakes and your cans than you do with the spring brakes. Well, think about it. It takes 60 pounds to release your spring brakes, right? When you pull that squaw handle down, you got 120 pounds back there. Now, if you're laying underneath that truck and an airline blows or a diaphragm blows and the brakes, you got nothing left on your trailer while you're laying there hooking your chains up. Now, maybe something will freeze up. It has in the past, but you're okay. You're sitting there. You're not run over. The truck hasn't slid down the hill, went in the ditch, or anything else. And to me, it's just that way nobody gets hurt. And if you can't get going, well, the truck's got a good chance of holding it while you're trying to figure out everything else, because then you got two sets on.
So when you spin out, you set your truck and trailer brakes.
Oh, buddy, that's the first thing I do. And I don't ever spin out. Just kidding. The other thing is if you know, I seen it on the wall in the Coldfoot bathroom, and now that's got to be profound. Jesus came to save the sinners, not the spinners. How profound is that, right?
When did you write that?
Oh, I told you can learn anything, right? But if you're wiping, get your foot out of it, because you're just making it worse. You're just making ice under your tires. And if you're not going to make it, stop, throttle out of it before you spin out completely, so you can roll ahead a foot or two off of your ice. You're sitting on snowpack, not hot ice. And I've seen guys burn down to nothing there, and it's like, and then when you chain up, if you throw a set on, you ease the clutch out. If they turn over once and the truck doesn't move, stop. When you start digging holes, you're making it harder to get moving, because you got to lift up out of them holes, plus get going over this on the slick road. And I tell you what, I think we've got a pack of ice gophers up there. There's holes everywhere. There's holes clear through the chip seal. I mean, they're going to have to haul a bunch of hot oil up there to patch some of these holes that are in the road. And I'm thinking it's just tearing the rear ends out of the truck. I mean, that's all you're doing, tearing the rear ends out.
And the poor guys, they probably never dealt with that. They're scared out of their mind because they don't have the knowledge behind how to do that.
Well, and I know this comes from having to mechanic on my own stuff all my life, and having one of my really good friends is a mechanic, probably longer than I've been alive. And he went through, and when I was a kid, he explained to me on these rear ends and stuff. And if you chain your front axle up, I know a lot of guys laugh at me, but if you chain your front axle up, set your truck up so you can put your chains on your front axle, then that axle is breaking up a little bit and giving your back axle traction. It's like puncturing the road so your back axle can help more. The other part of that is 99% of the trucks built, the drive line between the two rear ends is smaller than the main drive line coming back. So if you put your chains on the back, not only are your front drivers really not doing a whole lot, you're putting your whole load on the smallest drive line in your truck. And I've seen a lot of times where guys just fight. And I mean, I'm putting my hand up because I tried it a couple times. And I dug a lot worse with my chains on the back axle than I did. I made it. I'm not saying I didn't make it, but there was a lot more chewing and churning going on than there ever was if I put on the front. And another thing I learned, if your fifth wheel is slid way back, your front axle doesn't do a whole lot. I don't know, just the way everything balances out. And so that's another thing, too, to kind of watch for if you keep that thing closer to center or maybe back a little bit. But if it's way back, you're going to have traction problems, even with or without chains. I had that on my Kenworth because I was going to bridge a great big load, excuse me, and I slid that thing back to get through the scales, and then I couldn't get it slid forward. And I slipped and spun more getting to Prudhoe than I ever had in my life. I'm going, I'm not doing that again.
Well, it's like the super trucks, the tri-drive twin steers, they'd have that thing stretched all the way out over that back axle, and they couldn't keep the jack shafts in there. They'd have to even that weight out on their drives.
It just loads up that smaller part too much. But that's, if you don't own the truck, I guess you don't care, but I care. And that was the other thing, we were kind of talking, we've talked about it a little bit. We are representing whoever we haul for. And if you are being a butthole, then that reflects on the company. And back when we first started, people took pride in who they hauled for. And, the bosses didn't want to hear bad stuff. They didn't want to hear people acting that way. And when you deliver that load, it's customer service. And I know the saying, customer service comes to Fairbanks to die, but we don't have to continue that. When you're hauling that load up there, it depends on what you haul. Some of this stuff, there's whole crews waiting on that load. So when you don't get there, on time or within a reasonable amount of time, or it's damaged, you look at these camp units that go up there, there's a certain spot for each one of them camps. If one of them gets damaged, it screws up the whole project, and there's a whole bunch of people there that it messes up. And it's not just that way with them camp units, it's with a lot of stuff, and pipe spools and stuff, there's only like a certain place they go, or there's some piece that gets lost off the load, and so take some pride in it, and remember that, you are the face of your company. And I really get frustrated when I go in town here and I can't get customer service. I don't want to treat the people in Prudhoe like that. Say, well, it's just an oil company. Oh, that's not it. I got friends that work up there. I know a lot of people that work up there. And I hear about how they get screwed up, and I don't like it, And so I just try to have as much pride as you can. But, I know one of the other things that we really haven't talked about, too, is I pulled a lot of lowboy up there. That's what I did for the first 5 years that I come up here. And, I pulled them 100 tons. I pulled them 100-ton 12-wide lowboys. I pulled a load. I think it was a load a week out of down there in Anchorage to Prudhoe with modules there for, that one project. We realized that according to the permit, according to everything, state law, we don't have the right of way. It was out of courtesy and respect that people would wait for us. And there were certain ways that, was legal to stop people when you needed to. And there was a lot of times that I'd have 2 or 3 push trucks that we stopped to let traffic come by because it was easier for me to stop than it was to hold them guys for 10 or 15 or 20 minutes. We never went down the road, and that's why I'm a little cranky with pilot cars, is I never let my pilot cars go down the road telling people they had to get out of the way. That never happened. If they did that one time, they didn't work with me again.
That'd be a good way to lose your permit, really. I'm surprised a lot of that stuff isn't happening.
Well, I don't know how it is now, but back then you were a group. And if you got pulled over for any violation, everybody that was associated with that permit got that same violation. Pilot car drivers, whoever was part of that load got that violation. Like if you were speeding or something, I don't know if it's the same way. But I do know that it specifically states that you are to have communications. A pilot car is supposed to have communications with the load. It doesn't say anywhere that I have to have a CB if I'm not. And I don't even know what the rules are about using the CB. You're not supposed to use it for commercial use. So where's the, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of stuff out there that we take for granted that probably we should be a little more courteous with and stuff.
Yep.
And, I mean, I have a pet peeve with that CB because there was quite a few times that I come off of Gobblers. It was dark. And I looked down there. I was southbound, and I looked down there, and there was no lights. Thought there wasn't anybody around. And I started down around there, and there was a guy with a fifth wheel trailer, one of them hotshot guys, had burned out, jackknifed, and had his headlights jammed in the snowbank. And his trailer, there was no lights because they were jammed in the snowbank. It wasn't because I was good or doing everything right. It was the grace of God. I hit the guy because I come around there and I realized what was going on. And I mean, I got stopped. And the guy was trying to do whatever. And I mean, the whole thing took off down the hill. That whole, it went clear to the bottom, sideways, this way, that way, and everything. And then it jammed it down over the bank. CB was pointless at that time. So you need to remember, not everybody has one, or it's broke, or it's really hard. I haven't seen a mic cord long enough yet that will reach from the truck back to where I'm chaining up. Now, maybe they make them. I'd like to have had one a time or two because I kept slipping and falling down, and I could have held on to that to stand up. But, that's a common sense thing. If I have a choice of sitting in my truck and calling out for an hour until I finally get a hold of somebody, or bailing out of that sucker and put chains on before it takes off backwards, I'm out of that thing every time.
Well, all the trouble spots are in the same spot. It's like we used to be trained. You ease off there, make sure nobody's screwed up. And it's almost like the state does such a good job anymore that people aren't seeing that as much anymore. Well,
that comes back to these higher horsepower trucks. We're going over the top of the hills faster, way faster than we've ever did before, with heavier loads that are harder to get stopped. And it's just, it's not a problem. It's just we need to be thinking more about it. And like I say, there's guys coming up from outside that don't have radios. I mean, we've all run into that. So, like the other day, that guy was, I don't know what he was doing, but he'd hit the backside of the Koyukuk southbound 3 times, and then he decided maybe he better chain up. How he got back off there without crossing up, I don't know, but, and just eased off there and realized what was going on. But, I mean, I see these guys, they're in such a hurry to get home that they're coming off these hills 50, 60 miles an hour. And I remember seeing one guy come off of Mackey. Tell you what, he cleaned that ditch for 500 feet before it plowed up enough snow to stop that truck to keep from hitting somebody down there. I think you remember who I was talking about. That left the imprint of that Peterbilt and everything else right in the front of that, smashed his grill in and everything else. But, I mean, he come over it too fast.
Yeah.
And
they're not thinking ahead. It just you don't lose a bunch of time just coming off there easy enough to stop. But you have to be thinking ahead. You can't just got to have your head in the game.
Well, and another thing too is everybody's so happy with the general public, and we have a bullseye on us. I mean, you remember when Terry Dunn hit that guy? That trooper said, "You better have your ducks in a row because you will be charged if this guy dies." He had an eyewitness that it was the other guy's fault. The guy pulled out in front of him. Terry he had to make sure everything was right, and the guy just flat pulled right out in front of him.
I don't even think he slowed down.
No.
Stop sign.
So when you're smoking back to town and somebody does that and you maybe shouldn't be there, you are going to get hammered.
So just for the people listening, what happened to Terry?
Guy blew the stop sign at Fox Scales. Scales was closed. I think it was dark. It was early in the morning. Terry had a load of fuel. It was northbound. He was doing, I think it's 55 there, but they showed he was only doing about 50. And the guy come up to the stop sign there just as Terry got there and just mashed on it. And there was a Alyeska security guy that witnessed it all. He said it looked like the guy deliberately drove in front of his truck. They hit so hard, Terry couldn't steer. It took them both off down over the bank there. And, it totaled his truck out. The guy lived, but he was hurt really bad. And it was almost a year later before he got his insurance on his truck. So this whole thing, oh, my truck's insured, yippee skippy, what are you going to do for 6 or 8 months or a year waiting for that settlement? And then if it's contested or whatever, lawyer fees and all this other stuff, best thing is just to slow down and not have a problem, you know. But, you know, I mean, it's just common sense. It's just, you know, like we've been talking, it's just common sense.
So something else, thinking about these guys, I'm looking at some of these guys waiting on these hills or waiting for people. It's like people know the rules of the road, but they don't really understand them. And it's like there's guys waiting in blind spots or around corners. And
you can keep rolling, and I met a guy coming off 117, obviously. I made sure that the hill was good. It was good when I went north. And I didn't see him until I'd got over the top a little bit. Now, if I'd have stopped, I'd been stopped blind. I didn't do that. I just put it in second gear, and I said, hey, I'm just going to ease down off here. You just do what you got to do. It's not a big deal because you're going to be up in the pole. It's not going to be a speed issue, and I'm going to be down past where he might spin out anyway. Yeah. And I want to be past. If he's going to spin out, I don't want to be there. Yep. I don't need to see it. I've seen it enough. I don't need to see him chain up. I've chained up. I know what it takes. I want to go home. And so what's wrong with that? And it saves somebody. I've seen too many people up there almost get rear-ended, popping over them hills. But it's another thing. It's a common sense thing. There's places you don't do that. I mean, you don't. The ice cut, you just don't drop down in on somebody. If you do, just shut up and take it because you deserve it. Yeah. But there's other places that's not necessary. You know, I hear these guys, I'm running for the pass. Whoopie-doo. You're going to make it 200 feet further before you go to your pulling gear? I mean, I had a truck, I could hit it hard. I mean, I had a truck that had the air nose. I could go fast enough, I had to slow down for the corner. It didn't matter. I pulled the hill the same speed. I could start at the bottom or whatever. You know, it's just people just need to relax a little bit and realize I'm going to be in whatever gear I'm going to be, no matter. Might be there a little sooner. But
and I've had guys, they'll come off there and they'll stop right in the hard part of the hill, and it's like, man, if it's slick right here, I might want that lane. And they're stopping, trying to be courteous to me. Yeah. It's like, man, get down off the hard part. And
if we don't meet right in the bottom, yeah. I don't care.
And that's the biggest thing. It's like you don't want to meet somebody when they're going fast, but it's fine if you want to meet them at the bottom of the hard part of the hill.
I need to apologize. I think I rocked you on up towards the top of 12 Mile one time. And I'm going to apologize for it now. I didn't need to be going that fast.
That was a
very
vivid memory. I was very happy for you.
Yeah.
That's the biggest smile I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was not good.
That was some horsepower right there.
Yeah. But
so what happened?
They screwed up on his injectors or something.
Who was you were pulling the hill?
No, he was waiting for me, but I thought he was waiting on the top, and so I throttled into it more than what I needed to, and he was barely down from the top, but I was still doing 55 mile an hour.
Probably over 1,000 horse.
Yeah, it was crazy, but we laugh about it now, but yeah.
I was just jealous.
Yeah. I hauled his truck home, and he says, "You're hauling my truck home faster than I can come up here by myself."
You had a lot of fun with that truck, but
it cost me
a lot of money in tires.
It cost me a lot of money. It cost me so much money, I would never do it again. Yeah.
Man, I think the smile on your face almost was worth it.
Not when I had to write the checks for the repair bills. That was horrible. I took the first trip I was horsing with that thing. I took 3/30 seconds of rubber off the drive tires. So if we tell something, I can't be legally held responsible, or you can edit it out. But good. I went by Ron DeBoard there at Farmer's Loop there, and he was pulling out from the gas station, and I rolled past there, and I seen him sitting there, and I mashed on that thing. I don't know how fast I had 100,000 on. I was doing probably 65 up Haga Barter, loaded, and I had a lot more to go. I rolled off the scales when he pulled in there. He was yelling and screaming, "You're breaking the speed limit, you're breaking the speed limit. I know you're driving too fast." I said, "Well, how fast was I going?" He said, "I don't know, but it was too fast." See you later. When he said, "I don't know," I left. I mean, what's he going to do, you know?
Is that the truck that ended up with the slow-moving triangle on the back of it?
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody wanted to see that after a while, though, did they? Now, we had a lot of fun back then. I mean, it seems like that's gone, and I don't know where. I remember you pulling off and shutting your lights off and then sneaking back up behind people in the middle of the night, or he would be back there egging them on because they thought he was ahead of them. They're driving their brains out and they can't catch him. They can't see his lights or anything. He's back there laughing his butt off there all the way to town. Yeah, more
Be a
than
nice
once.
full moon.
Yeah, I mean, we used to have a lot of fun, but yeah, I mean, you couldn't do that now. But I remember just there was, just.
That made JD pretty mad that one night.
Yeah, that's okay.
He thought a UFO had caught him when I turned the lights back on.
Poor Terry, I did that to him once, and I got to thinking maybe that's why he had to have his heart worked on later. Terry, if you're listening, I'm sorry about that valve they put in your chest. But no, we did. We had a lot of fun. We got, we pulled the trips, and that's what I don't understand is you can pull the trips that you're supposed to pull and not be a jerk. I mean, you can. And I mean, I pull heavy and I can still pull through a week and slow down when I need to. Not that I don't screw up, I do, and I'll be the first one. If I rock you, hey, I apologize, I get it. It happens. Sometimes you meet people on corners and it happens. And I've had it happen to me, and it's a corner. You know it's there. I get it. I'd rather have a cracked windshield than I would have a trailer in my grill, So I get it.
That is a tough thing. Everybody's apologizing about rocking you or whatever, and it's like, man, I think about the rocks the size of your fist flying at you. It's like you got this sand up there now, but
yeah.
Yeah.
In spring breakup, people forget that they're in spring breakup. And that's a whole different situation, and you have got to slow down. I mean, or you'll take the windshields right out. Mm. But, it's, again, common sense. Look at what's going on. Listen, if you hear rocks bouncing off your trailer, they're going to be bouncing off somebody's windshield. No, one of the things that I see, too, is people, like I say, they're leaving town with one set of chains. So what happens if something breaks on that set of chains, or what happens if it isn't enough? I think these companies should make it mandatory that you should have two sets of triples, and you should be able to install them, be able to put them on. Not have your fenders down there so far that you can't. But like Bart, a good example, he's got his pinned. If he needs his second set, he just jerks them fenders off, sets them on his deck, and away he goes. But he can if he needs to, And, I mean, there's times that, some people need two sets and some people don't. But you should know that. I mean, there's been times, especially in transition, there's times I'll put two sets on when other people are running one set because I like my safety bonus.
Yeah.
And I'm not losing, thousands of dollars just because I didn't want to chain up.
Well, what's the tow bill that comes with that? If you got an issue, I mean, it's really expensive. You can buy a lot of chains for that.
You can buy a lot of chains for $7,000. Yeah. But
it's always nice to have. I always like to have three sets and a set of singles. Just you don't use your singles very often, but man, I don't.
Steer chain.
Yeah, exactly. A steer chain. I never run singles on the dries, but the other part is you're getting paid by the trip. It's like I don't want to be stuck up there because I don't have chains. You put your chains on, you can still get home. It's like I just want to go home.
You bend these new trucks up now, and it's a big deal. It gets super expensive. I mean, what's a hood? $25,000.
$5,000, yeah.
$25,000 for a Peterbilt hood. And it's like, but I mean, I pack a shovel with me. I pack. I mean, people think it's silly, but we dug Dale Foster, another guy and I, we dug for 2 or 3 hours, and we were able to get out of there and get down to where we were out of the blow. If we hadn't had a shovel, we'd have been sitting right in the middle of that worst part of that. And if it's okay, I'd like to bring up Facebook for a minute, and I won't go off on a rant. People need to understand there's a place for that, but it is not while you're driving. Things change up there. Within 5 minutes, you can be in a totally different situation. I have come off the pass where I was stopping because I couldn't see. I've never, first time in my life, the only time in my life I've had to stop on the northbound side because I just flat couldn't see. 10 minutes later, it was crystal blue sky, and then people were driving up there. 10 minutes. So that's what bothers me a lot about the Facebook thing is it immediately after it's posted, it is outdated. Yep. It is posted on a person's perspective. Some people, not down them, haven't been up there as long. I've had people tell me that it is so bad that you're going to die going up there, and you drive over it, and it's a little windy. It's just everybody sees things differently. Yep. And I seen, and particularly when the pass was blowed shut, if people would have not paid attention to that, they would have been home instead of sitting in Prudhoe for 2 days, because the road did not close until 9:30 that night, like it was posted at 4:30 or 5. And my thing is pack enough food with you for 3 days, enough food and water for 3 days, no matter what, because that will most likely, you're not going to run out of food long enough to be in a bad enough situation to where you, by 3 days, you're going to be able to get someplace to get more food or whatever.
And the fuel.
And the fuel. Yep. And the fuel. And you may only need that once in your life. I mean, I was stuck at Happy Valley for a week when the culvert blew out and the road washed out behind us. If that camp hadn't been there at that time, we'd have been in a world of hurt, because we were there for 5 days. We couldn't go either direction. And, stuff like that can still happen. I mean, it took that road out down at the end of the Sag Flat. It took that 10-foot culvert and blew it down the river like it was nothing, And so stuff still does happen.
It's funny, like on the pass, like you were talking, Nathan and I had that deal this winter. I went up there, I think I was barefoot, wasn't I?
Yeah, you were barefoot and we were heading southbound.
Yeah, I barefoot the hill, and I get up above the pipe crossing, and all of a sudden that wind come in there, and it's like I was just about stopped, and I dropped the steer tire off. It's like, man, I said, get stopped, get a set of chains on before you come up here. And by the time, I don't even think it took you 5-10 minutes to chain up. By the time he gets up there, it was beautiful. The traction was beautiful.
Well, then people look at me like I'm crazy. I have seen it change. Years and years and years ago, when Custer was still driving, Brett's dad, we were coming northbound off Slope Mountain. Of course, that was the old road there, and it was dark. And I happened to see off the reflection. I was a quarter mile, half mile behind him. I seen a reflection of something out towards where that mountain where the sheep are at up there, and I'm kind of looking at it. And I said, Custer, that's something weird there. And then I started yelling at him. I said, stop, you're just about to get buried. And it was like it was like a sheet that blew. It was a line, and it come up, and it blew across there, and you couldn't see anything. And it was a split second. And it lasted for 10 or 15 minutes. And he didn't see it because he was down far enough. I was back where my angle was, and I seen it coming, and it just buried us. And 15, 20 minutes later, it's gone.
And but you have to be able to stop and wait that out otherwise you're not going to make it. You're going to be in the ditch.
But it changes so fast, and I'm gonna tell on myself. This was a religious experience time it got done, and Brian Lawrence will tell you the same thing. I didn't know he was down there, but we were coming north. Leaf, Boots, and I were running north, and it'd been kind of snowing a little bit, and the weather was back and forth. We went by 100 Mile, a little bit of snow. Started down off to Hess Creek, and it kind of turned to rain a little bit. And I thought, well, it's no big deal. I mean, the Jake was skipping just a little bit, and I kind of turned it down, but it was holding. I'll get down to the gravel there where the pavement ends, and it's no problem. I hit that gravel, and the truck took off. And I mean, you couldn't steer it. It would lock up on compression. I picked up another gear, and I couldn't even, without the Jake, it was locking up. Trailer was locking up. And it still had that hump in there when you went over that corner down to the bridge. And I figured, man, I was dead because I was moving. And that was the worst ride I've ever had up there. And it had changed so fast there. I had time to tell them guys to chain up. And that's all I had time for. And they listened. I mean, they stopped. And I thought I was going over the bank on that hump up above that access road there where it's that steep bank, and it went smoking sideways, and it hit a wall. And I figured I must have hit that berm there, And I knocked it back around and straightened the truck back up. And this wasn't me because there was no steering. You could spin that wheel with your finger. There was nothing there. And I shot down across the bridge, and it slowed down enough I could make that corner. And I got to a stop down there, and there's this other truck sitting there. And it was Brian Lawrence. And he'd had the same ride. And he said, I can't get out and chain up. My knees are shaking too bad. And I said, if that berm hadn't have been there, I'd be dead. And Leaf comes down there with his chains on. He said, Lonny, there ain't no berm there. He said, there is no reason. I said, well, then that was a mighty big angel because he batted that 100,000 pounds right back on the road.
Wow. Because
it hit like hitting a cement wall. It slid me sideways in the seat when it hit. It hit that hard sideways. And I figured I was dead because by then I was in seventh direct, seventh over with nothing. And I got out, and I couldn't even stand up to get back to get the change. It was that slick. It was pouring rain, and I just held alongside the truck, and I got one side on, and I slid around the other side. And by the time these guys got down there, it started snowing, and it was snowing really hard. And 5 minutes, you could walk around there like it was no big deal. 5 minutes.
That snow's amazing when it comes down on that ice like that.
But again, that's how fast can things change. So this is what I was saying about Facebook. If I'd have posted that, 5 minutes later, that post is irrelevant.
And you look like a fool.
Well, pretty much. So I don't have Facebook, so all them people out there can ridicule me all they want because I'll never read it, so it doesn't matter. But that's how fast things change up there. I mean, these last couple of years have been pretty easy years, other than some freezing rain. But we still even haven't had the freezing rain. I remember almost every year it would rain around Christmas. You remember that?
Yep.
Christmas to New Year's, we'd get a rainstorm through every year. And even the years it would be 50 below, it'd warm up. And I'm telling you, if it ever does that like it did then, just park. I had chains on the steer axle, I had chains on the driver, and I had chains on the trailer. It took me 3 days to get to Prudhoe. Long days. If there hadn't been a truck ahead of me, I'd have never made it up 2 Licker 117. I was running right up their tracks with 2 sets on, and it was all I could do to get up there. Man. We run them chains all the way to Prudhoe, and like an idiot, the weather cooled off a little bit, took the chains off in Prudhoe, stopped on the way back at the first place that I felt the truck wouldn't slide off the road, and put them right back on. But we couldn't even stop. There was another guy with me, and you couldn't stop, or the truck would start sliding off the road. But no, it was a long day. I remember 2 of the guys, Fairchilds, they sat on top of the slide for 2 days. Louis sat on top of Finger for like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, we were going south. I think it was Howard and I, Merriman, and then Charity was behind us there. But
Yeah.
Mark Fairchild got in the Arctic Circle. There's all he could do, get in the parking lot, and Kelly slept on top. And
Yeah.
we still went up the hill, but Howard let me go first.
Yeah. He's a smart man.
It was like he was one of my heroes, one of my mentors, kind of a thing. And it's
He
like,
just wanted to see what your cat-like reflexes were like.
yeah, he's like, you want to try the hill first? Like, yeah, sure. It's like I'm decorated. Man, I went over the top at 40. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I know Dad. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have, but go ahead.
Dad was telling me that if it does do that, if you can get on a bridge, at least you have the railings there,
Yeah.
so the truck won't slide off. And usually the bridge is warmer too. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
use
it's
the
like,
air tips.
what does a new guy do in that situation? There's no bridge. It's like
Sometimes I see these guys driving down the middle of the road when it's like that. That is the slickest part of the road because that's where it's plowed, that's where it's packed. If there's any crunch, anything on that edge, it will hold you. That's where you need to be. That's where you need to stop. That's where you need to get your stuff on and get your ducks in a row. Because if you try to stop out the middle, and that thing gets moving, it's got enough speed to punch through that side then.
so you can go anywhere.
Yeah.
You go through that berm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I just I hope. I think there's a lot of guys that come out of the States that's got a lot of miles, and it's more than knowing how to shift your shift lever and turn your steering wheel up there. And it's not a matter. It's got to get to where it's not a matter of pride or ego. The road will be a lot better place if that goes away. And I'm more than willing to stop to help somebody that's capable of helping themselves. I am not getting out of my truck and doing it for them. I carry a lot of stuff in my truck for my truck. It doesn't say repair service on the side. It doesn't say Lonny's tire service or anything else. I carry that stuff. Now, I've had to have help, and I always repay. If I got to borrow antifreeze or anything, when I get back to town, that's repaid. If I borrowed a part or whatever, it's repaid when I get back to town because nobody's going to subsidize me, and I don't want to subsidize anybody else. But I'm getting cranky. When you go up there and people don't even have a butt connector to hook two wires together, I'm going to ask them if they need a ride. I'm not digging my stuff out. I'll haul them to Coldfoot or whatever, but I am not fixing their truck. If they're out there underneath there, then maybe I'll give them a hand. But if they're laying in a sleeper waiting for somebody to come along and fix it for them, it ain't happening. I'll help them change a tire if they got tire tools. If they don't have tire tools, I'm not a tire truck. I'm a freight hauler, and I'm a cranky old man. And my hands get cold fast. And that's got to stop. I mean, this thing of not even having fan belts with you, how many belts have you seen blowing up there,
I've lost 2 in one trip before.
I've got 3. And the thing is my truck is built different. The trucks with the same engines with different radiators, my belts don't fit them. So how much of that, when them RST guys were up there, I tried to tell them, you guys have a different truck. I'm not saying it's a bad truck. Nobody runs Volvos. You're going to have different fan belts. You're going to have different hoses. Things are going to be different. Nobody's going to have that. You guys need to carry all that stuff yourself. But that didn't go very far either. But
It's a tough lesson to learn. A guy makes more money up there, but there's a reason. So you can carry extra parts and be more prepared for that stuff. Down in the States, you guys are running around. They can call for a tire truck. They can call for help. And it's like, Starlink, I guess you guys have phones now, but
it costs too much.
It's going to cost way too much.
And if everybody's trying to make a living up there, and it's like I seen 6 trucks stop trying to help a guy, and I thought about the revenue loss there because, we're supposed to be one big family. Well, you're talking about thousands of dollars. When you get to a certain point, you talk about thousands of dollars per hour lost because of somebody not being prepared. There's no reason for that.
Yeah.
This other thing too, stop burning out in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
What we used to, I'm serious, till this last 2 or 3 years, 90% of the time when somebody was burned out, if you had a chance, you said, hey, I'm burned out here, and you got you chained up, but you watched. And if you seen somebody coming at the hill and you knew there was room to get by, you just got out of the way. And you let them go. The whole road didn't shut down because somebody was spun out. Now it's just gotten silly.
Well, you should be spin out in the middle of the road. There's no traction. That's the slickest part of the hill.
But it's like, why? Yeah, nobody wants to run over anybody's legs. I get that. But if I've got a problem in the middle of the hill, I want somebody up there letting the other people know that I'm there. And I mean, I've told people, yeah, there's room. Come on by. I'll go over and get my other set on, you know. And I'll look. Shut your lights off and look up there. If you don't see any lights, you know, hook your chains up and get out of the way.
Yep.
But no, it's just changed. I don't like it, you know. But I mean, if you imagine with a 400 horse motor pulling 100,000 pound loads up there and pulling 3 trips a week, we did it. It's possible.
We wore chains a lot more.
We wore chains a lot more. I remember when we were lowboying, we put the chains on at the bottom of the hill. We took them off the top. We went to the next hill. We stopped. We put them on. We went top. Took them off. You chain up 7 or 8 times. You know, and now chains are what, 800. I seen some advertised for $1,000 a piece. And not only that, it tears the road up on flat ground. If you don't need them, take them off. These guys go up there. We want the road to be iced, and then they go up there and they blow it right off with chains. And it's there's no reason to be running them on flat ground, you know. I mean, I guess Tulik 117, I get it, they're not that far apart, but you got to run them 20 miles from one hill to the next hill, take them off.
Yeah.
You know, if there's not a good cushion of snow on there, then and you're just running down that ice, just take them off. But you got to think about it. A set of 7mm tregs is about 44 pounds. If that is the only exercise you get that day, big deal. That's all. It's 44 pounds a set. It's good for you.
Yep.
You know? But have I burned out? Yeah, I burned out. I mean, just, you know, it's always a judgment call. But when somebody tells me they don't even know what lockers are, so they're not going to use them, I have a problem with that. If somebody doesn't understand, on the haul road, you need to understand how your equipment works. You need to understand how your power divider works. You need to understand how your lockers work. You need to understand your truck, you know. And like I say, people do things different. It works for them. I get it. But understanding how things work is kind of guided me on how I do what I do. You know, I mean, you can have air problems, and they can be a nightmare anyway, even if you know. And some of these trailers have got so many valves. I learned on a tanker here this year. Brake set up, and it was a goofy valve I didn't even know they had on them. And I did whatever I had to do to get it rolling, and I knew I had brakes there. If I had emergency, I did, but things weren't all that great. But I got to where I called Tommy, and he said, "Hey, it's right there." I said, "What? There's no valve there." He said, yeah, there's a valve there. I said, "No, there's not." He said, "Yes, there is." I said, "Okay." He was right. I shouldn't have argued with him. I mean, he's always right. But, you know, it was gummed up, just had the stuff with me to bypass it. He said, "Just bypass it. You're fine." I cut the stuff out of there, I bypassed it, and had a good trip. If I hadn't have done that, it would not have been a good day.
So for new people listening, what does Lonny do? Does he drive with his power divider in and a locker, or just your power divider? What do you do? What's your standard?
My power divider is in all winter long. It never comes out, ever. I may, because it's locked in, and the way them gears rotate in there when it's locked in, they get wear. So there are times during the winter, if it's good going, I'll kick it out, let it turn, lock it into a different spot in that set as it rolls. If that makes sense, because you got that nest and stuff in there. So it's not sitting, beating on the same gear all winter long. But other than that, it's in. In the summertime, when I get off the pavement, it's in. Coming back empty in the summertime, I'll use my lockers just on the hills coming back just to save my tires and my driveline and my gear train. Because if you got your foot in it with these big motors and stuff and you're chattering up that stuff in the summertime, you're beating the living crap out of them gears back there. It's just slapping it's just beating them. But for tire wear and stuff, you know, my truck, you guys can go ahead and laugh. It's okay. The last 2 trucks have come with one locker switch. One switch controls them both. And I'm good with that. If I need one, I probably need them both. It doesn't bother how it steers. I mean, maybe in the yard on glare ice, but on the road, I've never had it push me because I don't pull into cold foot with it in. I use it on the hills. And it's never bothered me on the pass, on the switchback of the pass. But I approach that a little different too, probably than what a lot of guys do. Even if it's good, when I start up in there, I've got enough RPMs, enough horsepower, I can let off a little bit at a time as I go up around that corner. And you will never slip unless it's really super slick. You will not slip because you're just taking the power away as you go up around there. Then you get up there, if it's good, you just roll back into it and go.
So you'll go up there northbound with just your power divider in.
Lockers.
What?
Lockers. Everything's locked in.
Well, when you hit 1 mile,
1 mile, my lockers are in. On all the pulls, my lockers are in.
All your pulls. Okay, that's what I was wondering. Because I've heard some guys...
Unless somebody's not listening.
If
nobody around, I might not run them. No, with a tanker. I'm talking with a tanker. Load of mud, I did things different. And again, that's what we were talking about. Know your load.
Yeah.
When I was hauling mud, I was bulletproof, buddy. I mean, you didn't need them hardly ever because of the weight distribution.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just them little 3-axle trailers, and you load everything on the front, and you pick that lift axle up, buddy. It was very seldom did you even need the lockers. But when you got hazmat back there, then that makes you think a little different.
Yeah.
Because the cleanup is, maybe $100,000 compared to $10 million, $5 million, $15 million on that deal by Pump 3 when that guy spilled that fuel.
Yeah. I've just heard some guys will leave just the power divider in. They start slipping, then they'll put the lockers in for 1 mile.
You'll blow your gears out. There is a pile of gears at Young's Gear that you can go look at right now if you want to. The gears on the axles are stripped. The gears on the locker collar are stripped. The carrier, where the splines on the carrier, where the locker collar goes into, is stripped. It looks like a grenade went off in there.
So what you're saying is just put your lockers in if you're unsure.
Put them in before you hit the hill.
Okay.
Now, I've heard a lot of debate over front locker, back locker. I don't care. Mine's all on. I just got them both in.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anybody go around that corner fast enough on the pass to where it ever matter anyway. Loaded. Well, yeah.
Now, how about coming back empty? Do you have when you run these hills, you put your lockers in too?
Depends on how the condition is.
Yeah.
If it's 20 below on a fresh blade and I'm not worried about anything, I don't worry about it. I will tell you one thing. I had 630,000 on them rear ends that I just took out of that truck of mine. The lockers look like brand new.
And that's miles you're talking?
Yes, yep. 630,000. The loads. With big loads, 110, 112, 115, 100, always over 100,000. Those lockers, the splines and everything look brand new in there. And if I have hit a hill with my head squarely, it's called CRIS, cranial rectal insertion syndrome. I had a horrible case of CRIS. Wasn't paying attention, didn't have the lockers in. In fact, I think I might have had the lift axle down. It was a bad day. I was flipping switches, but I had let off. I figured I'm not ripping my rear ends out. I'll spin out or I'll make it, but I'm not taking $9,000 worth of gears out. And I let off and I hit a whole bunch of switches and I prayed like you ain't never prayed before that lift axle would come up. And it kind of did. And we made it. But, I mean, never hit that switch when they're spinning. It just, you wouldn't take a car and jam it in gear without using the clutch, would you? No. Although I've seen people try. But, I mean, that's the same, you're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just like going out and jumping in a manual transmission and just slamming her in gear.
I just didn't.
This is something I wish that people would. I took back in the Stone Age when I first got my license, it was a combination instead of a CDL. But state of Washington, to do your own vehicle or your annual inspections, you had to have a class on air brakes, and you had to have that certificate. And if you had that, then you could go ahead and do your own inspections if you had that classification on your CDL. It was a good class. It was very informative on crack pressure and how the relays and everything worked in the curriculum. I wish they would bring that back, because it wasn't boring, and it actually has helped a lot in tracking down air problems and stuff. Now, these new trailers are quite a ways ahead of my time, so they got a lot more valves, so it's been a learning curve on some of that. Because a tanker's got, you got that valve up under the landing gear that controls the valve on the dry lock, which controls the valve on the vapor recovery. All three of those valves affect your parking brakes if they're hooked up and working properly, plus all the normal park and brake valves. So there's a lot can go wrong. And you got the other valve in on the internal handles, which can affect your brakes too if it's set up right. But it's not only that. I just wish these companies would take and not just set a person in the truck to see if they can make it to Prudhoe. Have them go out in the shop for a day. Have them learn that truck. Not be a mechanic, but have them learn the truck. How the wiring is laid out, where the plumbing is. This does this does that does that. Show people how to prime a pump when it runs out of fuel, prime the truck up when it runs out of fuel. Because I'm here to tell you, it's going to happen till the end of time. You're tired, you get a vent plugged, you don't catch it. Some trucks only got one fuel gauge. Everybody sucks a tank dry. I don't care. You can be Mr. Perfect, and you're going to, sometime in your life, you're going to have a problem. To find out, each motor's different. Detroit's prime different than Cats. Cummins prime themselves. I don't know red motors, so I don't know how to do that. But I've had Cats long enough that I can prime one up in about 10 minutes if I got an air hose. But that's just stuff that's going to happen. It's just going to happen. It doesn't mean you're a bad driver or whatever. It just happened. And the other thing too is watching these ABS valves on these trucks and stuff. When you get, we're heading into this. That's why I mentioned it. We're going to head into it when it's 19 to 20 above up there and the water's flying off of the ice. And it's going to get on I drove a truck 2 or 3 years ago, and I did it because I had assumed that they'd put shields down over the valves. That was my mistake. I shouldn't have assumed that. But you will smoke a brake and not even know it. That spray will get up over that exhaust vent on that valve on one side or the other, and it'll hold a pound on them brakes. Not enough that you feel it on the power, but enough to catch them on fire. And it's just things to watch for. And all it takes is a torch or a little hammer. 2 seconds. If you stop, look when you stop. Did you go to the bathroom or whatever and you're walking around the truck? See if there's ice buildup around them valves. Just reach in there and whack it, or not whack it, tap it. Don't whack it. They're aluminum, thin aluminum.
Yeah.
But just tap it, get the ice broke off. But it's just stuff like that I wish they would take, because that stuff really didn't happen down in the States. We never had that happen logging. We'd have mud up our crack, but we didn't have ice, But, so it's just things that are peculiar to our road that sometimes they learn the hard way and things are on fire and it's not good. And it happens to everybody. This ain't a newbie deal or a 100-year veteran. It just happens. It just happens. Something to watch for. But
it's usually always a certain temperature when that happens. But
yeah, it's crazy. The water's flying. It's 19 degrees and the water's flying because the radiant heat from the sun's going through that ice. And I didn't know that. My buddy told me, he said out there on the ice road when the sun's out, it melts the ice from the bottom up because it's like a magnifying glass going through there. Of course, I experienced that firsthand falling through that ice road out there, but that was unpleasant. But yeah, you just drive along and bam, the truck would fall through it. But no, always be willing to learn. No matter how long you've been up there, be willing to learn. And
there's a reason people bring their vehicles, trucks, whatever up there for cold weather testing, because if something bad's going to happen, it's going to happen up here.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of learning just from that stuff.
Yeah, I see a lot of cool stuff. I see new guys that give me hope. not that it was hopeless, but I'm getting cranky. I am, and I don't mean to be. My wife told me, she says, what is going on? I said, it's stressful every trip because of the lack of common sense. This used to be fun. It was work, but you worried about the road and you worried about the weather. And that was it. And I can deal with that. Now we're dealing with a whole different level of stuff. And but like I say, I've learned some pretty cool stuff this year. I'm old enough I can't remember what it was, so now I got to learn it again. But it was at the time, I thought that is such a good idea, and I forgot it. So next time I see that, I'm gonna go. That is, it's a blessing of being old because every day you learn stuff. Even if you learned it yesterday, It's like it's all new.
Well, it's funny. I was thinking about that last couple of years, but it's like you don't even know what you know sometimes up here. You're just going through dealing with that.
It's habit.
Yeah, it's habit. And even with you forgetting that, once you get in that situation again, it'll come right back to you.
Yeah.
It's like, I remember this now. But you need, if somebody else is fighting an issue on the road, you need to pay attention and learn from that. I remember Custer out there fighting them valves on them Freightliners. And it's like nobody, I remember watching him, and man, he just climb out of there and just do this or do that. It was like, you need to pay attention when somebody else is helping you.
So I watched the guys get a steer tire out. I'm serious. I think it was, anyway, won't name names, but it was in a blow, and it had got stuff up in the valve, and he'd hit the brakes, and didn't realize it was slick enough, didn't realize that it was dragging. I mean, the wind was blowing. He had the wheel pulled against the wind and everything because it was blowing really hard, and didn't realize it, and he skidded that steer tire out just because of one of them brake valves.
Yep.
And it's like, he was a seasoned driver. I mean, he got ridiculed, but I don't blame him. It was like, it's like somebody driving off. I remember when going in there and they were following poor Loper into that blow there, and he says, man, I'm in this horrible drift here. He said, we got a hold up. He said, I just can't go anymore. You got to see if we can dig our way through it. He gets out, and he ain't even on the road. 10 trucks behind him, they were going to follow him right to Russia, too. It's like, okay, so now we got to get him back on the road, but it just, things can happen. It's just crazy, but.
It messes with your mind out there. You're out there, the weather gets intense like that. You can't see, and if you're mentally not prepared for that, you get scared. I mean, once bad things start happening, it gets worse and worse.
If you can't keep rolling through there, I heard a guy, they chewed him out because he went in through there, and he did good. There's some of these trucks that do better in a blow than others. The slope-nosed trucks do really good in them blows. I'm here to tell you, they're just easier. You see 15 to 20 feet more road, like them new 49s or them 880s or some of them. You see so much closer, and anyway, so they do a little better, but they were giving him a hard time because it took him 2 or 3 hours. And I said, don't let him give you a hard time. I've spent 13 hours from Pump 2 to Prudhoe. And so it's kind of a matter of perspective. But don't start in there. Don't stop. If you don't feel like stopping in a blow is probably about the absolute worst thing that ever happened to you. If you don't have to, and you hear people are having to stop and go, just don't go. You can have air cleaners, belts. It turns into a disaster. People broke down in the middle of the road. Remember that one where that guy lost it, and that overhead door truck, and Eddie slammed into it because he didn't see it. Broke down. Had a guy break down behind me with a 12 wide. Never said a word. He was behind us. We were leading him in there. That's the time it took us 13 hours. His alternator went out. Well, he waited until the truck died, and then he jumps out of the truck, takes off running, trying to catch everybody. Well, then that 12 wide was sitting in the middle of the road there, dead, no lights, nothing. So you go charging into that blow, and you don't know that's there. You're going to plow right into it.
And then the drifts that start forming around, something like that. Once you get stopped and they're like that, drifts start moving. That's the thing. If a guy gets stopped somewhere, you still need to keep moving every so often to keep them drifts from building around you.
It's that one there, that last one when the ice road truckers were up there. That was so bad coming out of there. That one van was stopped at Franklin. It drifted from the top of that reefer from the very top, clear out across the highway.
Yep.
There was no getting by that.
Yeah.
So if you get stuck in something like that, like you had said to me in the past, you want to try and keep your wheels shoveled out and stuff like that, right?
Just keep
Or
moving.
keep moving at least.
Keep moving. It'll blow the other stuff away. And
The wind will change directions on you and
Yeah.
blow that snow away.
yeah,
Or it changes the wind direction, but just keep moving that, because
every couple hours, move to 5-10 feet or whatever.
when it does quit, you don't want to be waiting for the state to come dig you
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
It's like the state has enough to do getting the road open. They don't want to come save all these truck drivers.
Well, and then when you get people that get jammed up side by side, then how does the state get you out of there? They can't work around you. It makes their job 100 times harder to get you out.
Yeah.
But no, it can be fun, but it can be not fun too.
Yeah.
They make a lot of memories out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to make memories when the trips are good.
Speaking of memories, do you have a Mackie story? A good Mackie story?
Mackie story. Which one?
Everybody's got a Mackie story.
Oh man, I seen a guy go up there. He had one chain on one tire, one chain on the back tire. He had one locker, but he put one chain on the rear driver on the left side, one chain on the front driver on the other side, and he had them upside down. So the V-bars, we had V-bar chains back there, and the V-bars were down into the tires because he did not. Well, the chains won't slip that way. They didn't. They dug right into the tires as that truck went shooting backwards down over there over the bank.
Oh, man.
That guy ran all the way. He looked like, I thought he was having a heart attack. We just happened to come over the top of the hill about the time he taught Mackie running. This boy was overweight. Maybe he was way overweight when he left the truck, but he was still overweight when he got to the top of the hill. I thought he was going to die. He couldn't talk. He couldn't breathe. It just terrified him, you know. And we finally got him pulled out of there, but, man.
It makes me think of Mike Schuyler losing his truck in the fog on the path.
Oh, yeah. That guy handled that really well. He said, crunch, that didn't sound good.
I can't imagine spitting it out and your truck just disappeared in the fog. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, nice knowing you.
Yeah. But
Oh, man.
anyway, so
Well, we're right about an hour. And
that's all the words of wisdom I don't have.
Yeah. Well, it's been good.
well, yeah, until next time. Thanks for your time.
Next time, buddy, this thing is scaring me to death. I'm going to have nightmares. I'm going to wake up, get the mic out of my face. What is that thing?
Maybe we'll get you one of those big ham radio mics next time.
Oh, yeah. That'll do it. You notice I'm leaning back from it as far as I can, right?
Hasn't attacked you.
Yeah, I think it has.
All righty.